Hello, everybody. My name is David Laney, and welcome back. I'm super excited today to welcome my friend and classmate, Jeff Graf. Welcome, Jeff.
Hello, Dave. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. First off, congratulations on your internship this past spring at EY.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It was a great experience.
Congratulations. Again, that's awesome. It's huge, especially for an accounting major like you. That's super exciting and a huge thing that you could do this spring. So how about you tell everyone a little bit about your background, about who you are?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm Jeff, originally from the Chicago area. I was born and raised there, but my mom actually came to Ohio State, so that's kind of how I ended up here. And I knew when I got here I wanted to do something in business, so I actually started off in finance. But as I took my accounting classes, my finance class my sophomore year, I realized that I was a little bit more inclined towards doing accounting. So I ended up changing my major, and I've been accounting for about a year and a half now, and I just had a busy season internship with EY. So for those of you that might not know, January through March are typically very busy times for accounting firms because that's when a majority of their clients have their year end. So we'll go in and audit their financial statements and get them ready to be disclosed to the SEC. So that's what I've been doing the last few months. I'm back at Ohio State now for summer school, but it was a really great experience. I'm glad I had the opportunity.
Absolutely. Were you happy that you chose to do that springtime period versus interning, in the summer like normal college business students?
Yeah, so definitely it's a hard decision to make. I mean, when you decide to take a semester off of school, there's different implications that you can have. Definitely just not being around your friends, your classmates, stuff like that. Kind of have to put like everything else on hold to go and work. Yeah, because like you said, a lot of people are typically interning during the summer. That's kind of what our school system set up to be. But I will say, although it was a hard decision to make, it was a fantastic opportunity, especially if you're an accounting major. I think it's something to be considered. What I liked the best about it was it really showed me kind of like what a job in accounting would look like, because since you're so busy, they really throw you in. They just need all the help that they can get to try to get that financial statements out on time. So not to say that in the summer you wouldn't have similar opportunities. I just think that for accounting majors, it's especially helpful to intern in the spring and be able to really see firsthand some of the things that you'd be doing in your future.
Absolutely. And I think, like you said, we're all interns, we're all looking to gain that real world experience. So interning during accounting season, I think, it's definitely the best opportunity. So my first real question is, why Ernst & Young?
Yeah, so like a lot of accounting majors, a lot of them look at all the different firms. It's kind of described it like how when you go to pick a college, you have kind of a general idea of what kind of firms you want to look at. And it really came down, I know it's kind of a cheesy answer that everyone always says, but it really was the people. I really felt like I connected with the people at EY the most. They were super friendly from the start. The recruiter was extremely helpful, always willing to take time out to meet with you if you had any questions, needed help with anything. And then the whole interview process as well. I'll probably touch on this a little bit later, but I had 2 interviews for EY, and the second interview, I got to go to their office. So they flew me out to the Chicago office where I worked, and that was just a really unique, special experience because they were really happy to have all the applicants there, and they really treated us well, made sure that we were comfortable doing our interviews, and overall, it was just the people that kind of sold it for me. I know one of the most exciting moments I had was when I got my offer. So I was flying back to Columbus. I just finished my interviews for the day, and I was in the Columbus airport, and the partner that interviewed me called me on a Friday night. He could have been doing anything. It was Friday night. He was done with work, and he personally called me and gave me the offer. And I thought that was a really special experience. It really just goes to show the people that work at EY and how they treat each other. So it was a great experience.
Absolutely. So, like you mentioned, let's walk through that process of, how you looked at EY, the whole step-by-step process. So, what was your actual job role that you applied for?
So I applied for, typically in accounting, you can either do audit or tax. So I did audit. So like I said, we go in and audit the financial statements of the companies. So that's the job I applied for. I found it through Ohio State on Handshake.
Was there a reason why you chose audit, over tax?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a hard decision. Typically, Ohio State students don't take audit and tax till their junior or even senior year. So it's definitely something that you kind of just have to take a guess at what you might like better. Tax is a little bit more specific, obviously. So you go into the companies that your client, you go through very similar processes with each, whereas with audit, depending if you're working for a hospital or a manufacturer, some of the audit processes might be a little bit different. I personally liked audit because it really allows you to interact with the clients. One of the things I had to do during my internship was go around and ask people for information that work at the companies I was working with. So if I needed something from an accountant accountant or something from HR. That's what I liked about it. You got to interact with people at the companies and make connections, because you never know what those connections are going to end up doing it for you in the future. So it's always good to make relationships, network, and just meet as many people as you can.
Absolutely. I mean, it sounds like a great networking gig. Like you mentioned, especially as interns, we're just trying to grow our network as big as we can. So the fact that you were able to, use your job to meet other departments, I think is super beneficial and super big to, to make a big company small as well.
No, definitely. I mean, because some of the clients that you have, they can be small companies, big companies. So it's really nice that you get to have that interaction with the client that you're working with, because the more you interact with them, the more they're happy to help you, kind of put a name to a face instead of just the auditor that's there. So it was a great experience.
Absolutely. So you've decided audit. You've, found the job on Handshake. What's next?
So this is something I had never done before. So for EY, like I said earlier, there's 2 interviews that I had to do. So the first interview actually was a pre-recorded video interview. So basically, they told me that I'd been selected for an interview, and then they gave you, I think it was like 72 hours to complete this video interview. So basically, you still gotta dress up, look professional, act professional, have all of your answers kind of ready to go. But so when you go into the portal, it just starts timing you. So it will give you the first question. I think you had like 30 seconds to read the question, a minute or 2 to think about it, and then you had 3 minutes to answer each question. And that was it was a different experience. I had never done one of those before, and it's different because you're not sitting across from someone like you are in a normal interview, or even if you do a video interview on Skype and you can see the other person's face, kind of gauge their reactions to what you're saying. You didn't have any of that with the pre-recorded video interview. So it was definitely a little nerve-wracking. People definitely kind of got nervous. It was the first year EY actually did it, and it was a different experience, but I liked it. And then after that, I think they told you within the next week if you got selected for a second round interview. So depending on where you're interviewing for, they'd fly you out to that office. And then I think I had 3 interviews that day. So they take you out to breakfast, kind of show you around the office, and they'll and there's someone with you every step of the way. Like someone that's just graduated from college, kind of someone close in age to you. They'll show you around the office, take you to your interviews, make you feel comfortable. So it's not like a nerve-wracking experience. And like I said earlier, that the office visit for me was kind of what sold me on EY. I mean, it was just a great experience, and everyone I met was super friendly.
So let's talk about those 3 specific interviews just a little bit. What was that like? Was it a panel? Was it you amongst, 5 or 10 people? Was it you with the other candidates? How did that actually look like?
Yeah, no, so it was just one-on-one interviews. So I don't know how they scheduled the interviews, but different partners, managers, even seniors, people a few years older than us were doing these interviews. So I know I interviewed with 2 managers and a partner. And one thing I really liked about it, so it did seem to me at least that the video interview that I was talking about, that was a lot of the behavioral questions, tell me about yourself, stuff like that, like the typical interview questions that you get. When I got to the office, it really did seem more of a conversation. They kind of just wanted to get to know me. They wanted to sell me on EY. So that's what I liked about it. It was personal, but it just felt more of a connection rather than just getting all the interview questions out of the way and then getting out of there. So that's what I personally liked about it. All the people I interviewed with were fantastic. They had great stories to share and was able to talk about their experience. So that was great to hear from them. I mean, you can always learn from people that have been in your position before.
Absolutely. And, speaking on that, what are some of the things you think they liked about you? Why do you think, Jeff Graf stood out, amongst, all the candidates applying for this audit internship?
I mean, like I said, I think really that second interview, they just kind of want to get to know you as a person. So I think the best thing you can do is just be yourself. Don't be nervous. I mean, I know it's kind of a nerve-wracking thing. Like I said, you go to this office, you've never been there before. It's kind of the make or break moment. But I really do think that if you're just yourself, you carry yourself professionally, I think they'd really see potential in anyone. So that's my advice. I mean, I would say that just being yourself, don't be nervous, and don't try to like rehearse all your answers. And obviously you want to have something to say, but just make it more personal. And if they ask you a question and start going off kind of on a tangent and they just, I don't know, I think it's better to have a conversation than just kind of for it to be back and forth with interview questions. So that's what I think I did pretty well. I can talk to people pretty easily. So I feel like that was one of my strengths going to the interview, and it ended up helping me out.
Absolutely. And then like you mentioned earlier, you got that personal call, from that partner late on that Friday night, which really gave that personal touch, from EY that you really wanted to work for them.
Yep.
Absolutely. So now let's switch gears a little bit and talk more about your time at Ohio State. So, how did you build up your resume, what courses did you take? What classes did you do? What clubs were you a part of? How did you build your time at Ohio State in order to put you in a position for success?
Yeah, so I guess I'll start with the classes. So like I said, I came in as finance. I remember orientation. They kind of just said, what do you want your major to be? And knew I wanted to do something more on the analytical side, something with numbers, and finance just kind of sounds more appealing than accounting, I guess. So sophomore year, I ended up taking both accounting 1 and accounting 2 and the core finance class. And not to say I didn't like the finance class, but I just kind of felt myself a little bit more inclined to the work I was doing with accounting. They're very similar majors. I think with finance, it might be a little bit more specific. You want to go into investment banking, you want to go into consulting. Whereas I think with accounting, it's a little bit more broad, which I liked because I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. I mean, you're only a sophomore. It's a big decision to make. So that's when I ended up switching to accounting and then going from there. I felt one of the best things that I did. So I was selected to be an accounting TA for Mark Smith's accounting 1 and accounting 2 classes. And I feel like that's something that really helped me. Definitely just keeping those basic accounting skills fresh, being able to help others. I mean, because a big thing with accounting is you have to be able to explain things to others. You can't just say, well, this is how it is. You have to be able to explain why. So I'd say skills like that definitely help me out. And then really, I guess the last thing is utilize the people that are around, your peers, people in your classes. Because a lot of people have been in a similar situation as you have. They're looking for an internship. Maybe they're a few years old and they did a similar internship. So just kind of going back to networking, really making sure that you have those connections. You can try to utilize them because that was another thing that you asked me earlier, audit or tax. And during that time, I definitely utilized some of my older friends that were accounting majors, were put in the same position, whether they want to do audit or tax. And kind of after hearing both opinions, you have more information to make a decision that's better for yourself. So I'd say definitely just utilizing those network, taking the right classes and paying attention and making sure you're doing good in those classes. I think those are probably the most important things, I would say.
Absolutely. Was there something outside of, obviously the mandatory accounting courses that you took? Is there anything, any clubs you joined or any programs that you're a part of that you think help separate yourself from other candidates applying from this role?
Yeah, so like I said, I was an accounting TA. I just started that. This is my junior year. But my sophomore year, I did join a professional business fraternity, and coming into Ohio State, I didn't think I wanted to be in a fraternity. I didn't even know what a business fraternity was, but I think that's a great opportunity for business students. Like I said, it gives you direct access to older members of the organization that can help you out. We have different companies that come in and talk, so that's a good opportunity to network. And just things like resume building, career fair prep, just stuff like that I think was really helpful. And so there were, like I said, a lot of people in my business fraternity that were accounting majors as well. So being able to utilize them going through this process was something that I definitely think was useful.
It definitely sounds like one of your big pieces of advice is, pretty much to exhaust all resources,
Yep.
Pretty much whether that's networking or older people or people with more experience, which I think is a great piece of advice, especially for those, freshmen, sophomores trying to figure out what they do want to do.
Yeah.
I think it's a really good question. Looking back on it now, is there anything that you go about differently, whether in your application process and your time at Ohio State, is there anything that you go about differently?
I guess I can talk about something maybe I do differently in the job itself.
Sure.
So during busy season, you're busy, kind of the whole point of it. You're working long days, lots of hours. But one thing I kind of wish I would have done a little differently was interact with the other interns a little bit more. I mean, it was definitely hard. So I think there were about 40 interns and we were all put on different clients. So I never worked with an actual other intern. We did have a few intern events that EY would put on and bring in food and drinks and stuff. But I definitely think it would have been beneficial to be able to interact with them a little bit more. And I think that's definitely something that the summer interns get to take advantage of. They're all in the office, whereas we would usually be at the client side. So we'd be in the office of our client. And so for the summer interns, it's definitely something useful. I mean, they get kind of just going back to networking, just meeting others, hearing things that they've done. So if I could go back, like I said, I was busy a lot of the time, but I think it would have been beneficial in some of the free time to try to network with some of those, make friends, make those connections, because you never know what will happen with those connections down the road. So
absolutely, especially in business. So I guess one more time to switch gears here. So how did you kind of close out your internship? How did how did the tax season come to a close in Chicago for you?
Yep. So I can just briefly talk about my internship. So I think it was 9 weeks. So I spent 4 weeks on my first client, 4 weeks on my second client, and then 1 week on my last client. So then on the last day, brought us all back into the office, kind of just told us some of the things that they thought we did well, stuff like that, returned all of our computers, stuff like that. And then probably the best thing was they brought us all in a room, brought 2 of the partners in from the office and told us that we were getting offers based on a job well done. So that was definitely something that was super exciting. Going in, I didn't know if I was going to get an offer, but it was definitely something that was very valuable. I mean, it was just an exciting experience. They were happy to be there, happy to extend the offer to all these new interns. So it was definitely a great experience, and that's probably my favorite part of the whole internship.
Absolutely. And then probably one of my final questions would be, what did you think you did in your job performance that made you stood out, to get a full-time offer from EY? And congratulations again. That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you. I'd say something that I think I did well during my internship was, it's something my dad's always told me. He's like, you just have to kind of he always says a sponge. You just have to make sure you're taking in all the information that you can. Because I'll be honest, so when I got to EY on my first day, I pretty much knew nothing. You take a few basic accounting classes here at Ohio State, but then after your junior year, you don't have nearly as enough information as people that actually work there do. So they give you some basic training, some of the skills that you're going to need on the job, and they know that you're more than welcome to ask questions. That's what it's there for. It's a learning experience. One thing I think I did well was take notes. So I always had a notebook with me. If I went over to my manager and said, hey, I'm not really sure what you're asking me to do, what I should be getting from this, instead of having them explain it, you're just kind of taking mental notes. I think it's good to write it down. It shows them that you're listening, you're paying attention, you're willing to learn. And it just helps that if you get stuck after you ask them, you don't have to keep going back and asking them. Obviously they're there to help, but they want to make sure that once they tell you how to do something, I kind of start getting the hang of it a little bit so that it just gets easier and they can give you more difficult tasks as the internship progresses. So it's one thing I definitely think all interns should consider, just carrying around a notebook, just jotting down some notes so that when someone tells you to do something or shows you how something's done, it's easy. You can refer back to it and you always have those notes to look at. So that's something I think helped me out, like I said, and just going into the office every day with a positive attitude, I think is huge. Granted, it's work. Pretty much everybody would rather be laying out on a beach, but I think going into work with a positive attitude every day, I think is a good thing. They definitely want to see that you're excited to be there, you're willing to learn. So I think that those 2 things are probably what helped me stand out with the other interns.
Jeff, those are great pieces of advice and definitely nuggets that our people should remember and use in their internships to try to get that full-time offer. I would definitely like to thank you again, Jeff, for taking the time to talk about your internship experience at EY. Thank you again. Yep. You've been really beneficial for our students today, so I really appreciate it.
No problem. Glad to be here. Thank you.
Thanks. Take care.
You too.